Hello, this is the Lord's Legion and welcome to the best villains ever, the show in which I talk about a specific villain and talk about their backstories, abilities, greatest feats and why I love them so much. And to celebrate the release of Spider-Man Far From Home, I thought that now was the perfect time as well as the most logical thing to focus on another film within Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, but instead of choosing the most obvious choice in relation to Far From Home or even so much as focus on Spider-Man's arch nemesis, I wanted to tackle one of my personal favourite Spider-Man villains, as he is among one of Peter Parker's most deadliest as well as personal foes, and the villain in question is of course the Lizard. So without further ado, let's begin with his backstory. So Dr. Curtis Connors was born in Coral Gables, Florida, and he was a gifted surgeon who was enlisted in the US Army and was sent off to war. During this time, he would perform emergency battlefield surgery for the injured GIs until an unexpected blast hit his arm and it had to be amputated. After tragedy struck, Kurt Connors went back to a civilian's life and became a research scientist. But due to his missing limb, as well as the abilities of Lizard's regrown lost limbs, Kurt became obsessed and decided to study on reptilian biology, in hopes that he could create a serum that could regrow lost limbs. But after several years of working from home and with the aid of war buddy Ted Silas, Kurt Connors was actually successful in creating this said growth serum, as it did successfully regenerate his lost limb. But unfortunately for Kurt Connors, it did have a nasty side effect, as the reptilian DNA from the serum ultimately led to him transforming into a vicious reptilian humanoid monster, and developing a split personality and led to the birth of the Lizard, a savage being who is hell-bent on creating other reptilian hybrids like himself, and for many years wanting to be the dominant mind over Connors in attempt to prove that he is superior over his maker, sort of speak. Now looking back on this origin story, you can see that this is a rather tragic tale of Dr. Connors. Because relatively speaking, Dr. Connors is a good scientist who only really wanted to get his arm back. But in doing so, it ultimately led to the birth of a different creature altogether in the form of the Lizard. And ever since, Dr. Connors has always been in constant conflict between his own conscience as well as the Lizard's. And no matter how many times Dr. Connors is free from the Lizard's transformation, it's only a matter of time before his inner beast re-emerges and causes havoc once more. Now it's no secret that the Lizard does have a lot of powers and abilities at his disposal, and because of the Lizard's physiology, he does possess superhuman strength, speed, stamina, durability, reflexes and agility. Not to mention that he also possesses genius level intellect, although I do have to point out that this does somewhat vary depending on which form of the Lizard we are going by, though in his more recent incarnations he does maintain his intellect. Not to mention that the Lizard also possesses a regenerative healing factor, in which could help him regrow lost limbs, as well as sporting a long tail alongside sharp fangs and claws, in which his claws grant him the ability of wall crawling, and to top it all off, the Lizard also has some psionic abilities, in which makes him capable of communicating with other reptilian beings. Now despite of his somewhat limited appearances throughout the years, the Lizard has still achieved plenty of incredible feats to his name. And so I do want to share out some of his most impressive feats just to demonstrate on how dangerous he can truly be. For starters, the Lizard is strong enough to smash bricks with his own tail, as well as being strong enough to cut through Spider-Man's webbing. He has also demonstrated his strength even further by ripping the metal of a train car, and has even been stated by Spider-Man in that the Lizard is just as strong as he is. Not to mention that he can also go tail to tail with Stegron, in which more or less became a stalemate between the two, and can even snap a reptilian's neck with nothing but his bare hands, as well as swinging a mast at the Human Torch. The Lizard is also capable of ripping apart an alligator's jaw, as well as tanking a punch from Spider-Man to the face, resulting in him harming his knuckles after landing such punch. The Lizard is so durable in fact that he was once slammed into a concrete wall hard enough to break off chunks, and he was unharmed after the fact. He was also bombarded with thugs attacking with chains and guns, and it barely made him flinch in the slightest. Not to mention that the Lizard once had his throat torn apart and was also plundered off of a building and got up more pissed off than anything else. And on several occasions, the Lizard has been capable of surviving buildings that exploded onto him. Plus, it has been stated that the Lizard does have inhumanly fast reflexes, and even with Spider-Man's spider sense, the Lizard is still fast enough to tag Spider-Man with his tail. Not to mention that the Lizard has once stated that he could easily regrow his arm if it was violently torn off, as well as surviving being impaled by various metal spikes, and pretty much recovered at a rapid pace. And even though it took him much longer to recover from, he was still capable of regenerating from having his neck snapped. And during the Lizard's more recent evolution, he was able to tank blows from the likes of Spider-Man and Morbius at the same time, as well as developing his psionic abilities much further by controlling humans, through manipulating their more reptilian minds, so to speak. And lastly, the Lizard has been capable of surviving a stab wound through the brain with an antidote, in which he was only in pain because of the antidote itself and not so much the wound from his brain. And given the fact that the Lizard is among Spider-Man's oldest foe, it comes as no surprise that the Lizard has also appeared in other mediums such as the 90s Spider-Man animated series, in which was mostly based on the more classical incarnation of the character, as he wanted to turn everyone in New York into lizards. We also see the Lizard in MTV's Spider-Man the New animated series, in which is quite possibly his darkest incarnation in animation, as he was much colder and monstrous than previous other versions of the Lizard previously. Not to mention that Kirk Connors was a recurring character in the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series, and we even do get to see him as the Lizard in one episode, making it clear that it was more of his split personality and that he was more animalistic than anything else. And in terms of live action, we do see Dr. Kirk Connors in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy played by Dylan Baker. And while we never truly see him become the Lizard, it was heavily foreshadowed and implied that he would eventually lead to that route. This is further evident with this piece of concept art for the Lizard for Spider-Man 2. But as compensation, we do get to see the Lizard in live action during The Amazing Spider-Man portrayed by Rhys Ifans. And as far as Spider-Man movie villains are concerned, I do think that this version of the Lizard is pretty underrated. Sure, his design wasn't the best, and his end goal wasn't as thought out as it should have been, but I still enjoyed the portrayal of the character. Now, why I love the Lizard so much is because he ticks all of the boxes on what makes a great Spider-Man villain, as he is one of Peter Parker's most personal as well as most dangerous villain. And every encounter featuring the Lizard makes things difficult for Spider-Man, because not only is the Lizard relatively in the same league as Spider-Man in terms of power level, but he is also somewhat of a mentor figure for Peter Parker. And unlike most mad scientists that we know from the comics, Dr. Connors isn't exactly evil, but because of his tragic backstory as well as just how savage he truly is, this is why I personally believe that the Lizard is one of the best villains of all time. So are you a huge fan of the Lizard, and what is your personal favourite storyline featuring this reptilian monster? Comment below and share some thoughts, and as always, thank you guys for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, take care and have a good one.